let's think about things you should be afraid of. It's a funny category. Well, an animal wouldn't really have a category of things to be afraid of. What an animal would have is specific things they're afraid of. Okay, and so then the animal would have to learn, what do you do in the face of all those specific things that you're afraid of? So, you know, maybe you, I don't know, you climb a tree if you're a monkey and it's a jaguar, maybe, and you go under the underbrush if you're a monkey and it's a predatory hawk, something like that. You've got these individual escape mechanisms that are tied to the specific stimulus. But then there's human beings who are capable of abstraction. And so you might say, well, there's a class of things to be afraid of. It's those things that you should be afraid of. Those are the things that go bump in the night, right? You're always exposed to them when you go to horror movies, especially if they're not the gore type of horror movie. They're always hinting at something going on outside of your perceptual sphere. And they frighten you because you don't know what's out there. And so the Blair Witch Project was a really good example of that, because nothing ever happens in that movie, but it's, you know, it's frightening and not gory, so it's kind of an interesting horror movie. It plays upon the fact that you do have a category of those things to which you should be, those things about which you should be afraid. So it's a category, frightening things. And only something capable of abstraction could come up with the category of frightening things. And so Kelly is like an embodied representation of the category of frightening things. And then you might ask yourself, well, once you come up with the concept of the category of frightening things, maybe you could come up with the concept of what to do in the face of frightening things, which is not the same as what do you do when you encounter a lion, or what do you do when you encounter someone angry. It's a meta question, right? You could say, you may encounter a frightening thing. What's the thing? What should you do about it? But then you could say, at a philosophical level, you will encounter elements of the category of all those things that can frighten and undermine you during your life. Is there something that you can do as a category that would help you deal with that? Well, and the answer is yeah, there are in fact, and that's a lot of what religious stories and symbolic stories are trying to propose to you is the solution to that. One is, approach it voluntarily, carefully, but voluntarily. Don't freeze and run away, explore instead. You expose yourself to risk, but you gain knowledge. And you wouldn't have a cortex that, you know, is ridiculously disproportionate if, as a species, we hadn't decided that exploration trumps escape or freezing. It's like we explore. That can make you the master of the situation, so you can be the master of something like fire instead of just being terrified about it. So, and one of the things that's absolutely phenomenally fascinating, I think, is that one of the things that the Hindus do in relationship to Kelly is offer sacrifices. You say, well, why would you offer sacrifice to what you're afraid of? Well, it's because that is what you do. That's always what you do, is you offer up sacrifices to the unknown in the hope that good things will happen to you. So in a sense, you know, you're faced with something terrible, the uncertain future. That faces all of you, right? Something you're afraid of, no doubt. I mean, how many of you are worried about your future? Yeah, why? You're all young, you're smart, you're relatively good looking. It's like, what the hell are you worried for? What are you worried about? Yeah, right in this classroom, right. Well, maybe you're worried about what you're going to do or who you're going to marry or what your job's going to be or, you know, your health or your family, or there's a whole category of things to be worried about. So then you think, well, you're worried about the future. So what are you doing in university? Well, I would say you're sacrificing your free time in the present to the cosmos, so to speak, in the hope that if you offer up that sacrifice properly, the future will smile on you. And that's another fundamental discovery of the human race. It's a big deal, that discovery. It's like, think about it this way. By changing what you cling to in the present, you can alter the future. Wow! You know, I don't know when we discovered that. Maybe when we first started to store food or something like that. But it's a mind-boggling discovery. You know, again, it's one of the prime discoveries of human beings. So you represent the thing you're afraid of. Then you think, okay, there's a class of things that I'm afraid of that are unknown. What can I do about them? Well, that's a really good question. It's a sophisticated and complicated question. And we do know the answer to some of it. It's like, approach cautiously, voluntarily, when necessary. Don't run. especially if the thing that's in your way, if the thing that frightens you is opposing your movement towards a valued goal, do not freeze and run away, because the thing will grow if you do that, and you'll shrink. So that's a bad strategy.